Today we are going to be watching a video called "This Single-Handedly Proves Atheism is a Fraud." I haven't seen this video yet, so I don't know what the "this" in question is or how it single-handedly proves atheism is a fraud, but let's check it out and see what this person has to say.
Most atheists hold to some form of biological evolution. Many
Correct, we're off to a great start already.
Big Bang models would assert that the universe is billions of years old and that all came together from one singularity.
Correct, great start. Good job, my guy.
After which it started evolving over time. I will be
Bravo, bravo, very correct.
logically proving why this cannot be the case.
Oh, so this kid is about to disprove all of science in one 7-minute video. Well, I'm excited, by golly.
And I will also be providing reasons why that even though there's enough evidence that God exists, people still reject him anyway.
Oh, we got some evidence. Let's hear this evidence. I'm ready. I'm stoked. How about y'all?
Firstly, claiming that the universe came from a singularity is illogical, since
How is that illogical? Let's hear how this is illogical. But before we do, I just want to say, so we know that the universe came from the Big Bang. The Big Bang originated from a singularity. How do we know this, you may ask? Well, for one thing, we have the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is literally the imprint left over from the Big Bang on our cosmos. For another thing, inflation exists. Inflation, cosmic inflation, is very interesting because it says that, it shows that, as we look at galaxies that are further away from us, the speed at which they're receding from us is faster and faster. What happens when you reverse that? Well, it turns out it all goes to a single point in space and time, which we call the singularity.
a singularity can create nothing at all, since it is a singularity and is not intelligent.
The way he's thinking about singularities is interesting, but a misunderstanding of what exactly we mean by singularity. A singularity is an infinitely dense and hot point in space-time. And the problem is that the singularity expanding, what we call the Big Bang, did not, in fact, create matter. The singularity itself was everything you see in the universe. It was all matter in the universe that we know of, just contracted down to a single point in space-time. Now that's extremely trippy. But we do have other evidence for singularities, such as inside of black holes. Now, for black holes to exist as they do, the most likely explanation is that there's a singularity in the center of every black hole, which, of course, would not have the same mass as the initial singularity in our universe, but there are some very interesting ideas relating to black holes and singularities that could have relevance to our universe. For example, our universe could be a bubble universe that was created from a black hole in another universe. We could be a bubble universe created from a black hole. Our singularity seems no different on paper than any other singularity that we think exists in black holes. But it's just a possibility. It's nothing concrete, but it is just worth noting that singularities are incredibly complex, and it's okay to misunderstand them and what they are. I don't think even science has anywhere near a complete understanding of what a singularity is or represents. For the most part, it's the point where our mathematical models just break down entirely. They are a fascinating thing, and very, very mysterious. But there are some things we're pretty sure we can say about them, and in the case of the singularity that caused the Big Bang, one of those things is all of the matter that makes up the universe today already existed in that singularity. YouTube's algorithms work on watch time, so if you like this video and videos like it, please watch just a little bit more of it than you were planning to. Even a minute or two helps. You can also like and subscribe, which also helps with the algorithms. Thank you, and let's get back to the video now.
This singularity would also have to be infinite if it was what was in the beginning.
Well, no, it would not, because the universe itself, as we understand it today, is not infinite. Now, as far as I'm aware, the universe itself, despite being only 13.8 billion years old or so, is actually quite a bit, the observable universe, I should say, is actually quite a bit larger than that. Something like 45 billion light years in any direction you can see. And the reason for that is inflation, cosmic inflation. Now, there's even more interesting stuff about that. Like, for example, we don't know how big the universe truly is because, as far as we are aware, This is not all there is to the universe. We have an observable universe beyond which we can never see anything. However, there is more universe beyond that. And I think the highest estimates of how much is out there beyond all of that is about 255 times what we can see. So just enormous, a truly enormous amount of space and matter and energy out there. But not infinite. So I don't know where he's getting infinite from.
Which is much less logical than saying God is infinite.
That's just an assertion, and you have yet to prove said assertion. You just made a claim. So back it up.
If you claim that this singularity is intelligent, then you would not be an atheist.
That's why nobody's claiming that. Nobody is claiming a singularity is intelligent and set out to create the universe. It's just something that happened.
Because this singularity would be your higher power. But if you claim that it is not, then you would be saying that something that
I really like that edit. If you're saying it is not
created everything was unintelligent. Now, with all that
well, yes, that is exactly what we are saying. That is why we are atheists. The singularity was not intelligent.
Put together, this is why if you claim a singularity created the universe and you still want to be an atheist, then you would have to claim that everything came from nothing.
Well, everything probably did come from nothing in a sense. However, I'm not sure it matters a whole lot because there are other potential explanations that are also extremely unsatisfying, at least as unsatisfying as the God thing, and more likely to be true. For example, I have a friend, and one time her and I were discussing why there's anything at all, because I think whether a person is a Christian or an atheist, it's perplexing that there is anything at all. Just saying there is a God who created it doesn't make it any less perplexing that a God existed in the first place, in my opinion. So her explanation for why there is something instead of nothing, a most curious question, is that she thinks it's impossible for there to be nothing. Now, that answer is fairly unsatisfying because humans want to read reasons into everything. We want there to be reasons for everything, and we want them to make sense to us. And in a sense, that one does make a lot of sense. I actually think that that's fairly likely, that things exist because it's impossible for nothing to exist. That's one possible answer out of many. And if you ask me, that seems a lot more likely than inventing a God to have kickstarted it all. Maybe everything just always existed anyway in one form or another. I don't see what's so unlikely about that. It just messes with our human need to have a beginning and an end because, yes, humans, we have clear arcs in our lives thanks to our monkey brains and our very finite lifespans. We expect everything to have a beginning and an end, but the universe may not operate like that.
Since this singularity, if it were infinite and intelligent, would be a God. The problem with the universe being created by nothing, however, is that if the universe came from nothing, why do we have such order? I
don't know if order is exactly the right word. I guess you could say that natural law is a very ordered system in some regards, but I think in another sense, it's very much like chaos coming from order, because if you look at the earth and how it works, and the sheer amount of chaos held within, can you really say that we live in an extremely ordered universe in the same sense you would expect if a God created it? Because the universe, how it works, obviously the existence of atheists kind of confirms that the universe basically works like you'd expect it to if there was no God, or else we would believe in God after seeing how the universe works. But no. The universe seems to behave as though there is no God, whether there is one or not. And I think that's a big problem for theists and theism more generally, that they're just now starting to, I guess, wrestle with, you could say.
Asserting that nothing could create everything that we see around us also goes against the law of conservation of mass.
No, it does not, and here's why. The things we see around us, all of this, the mass and the energy within our little universe here, or our very big universe, however you want to look at it. The thing is, these laws apply to this universe, which came about through the Big Bang. These laws apply to the system in which we live. These laws, presumably, do not exist outside of this system. The Big Bang itself, cosmic inflation, the results of that would have effectively created these laws.
Which claims that matter is not created or destroyed. Evolution is so often...
No, matter is not created or destroyed in our current iteration of the universe, which got here from the Big Bang. It's a very different thing than what you're saying or implying.
Deemed scientific, but it actually goes against the own scientific principles that have been gathered by people throughout time. Another common objection is people say, well, doesn't God have to have a creator?
Yes, did I just mute that? I did just mute that. God does have to have a creator, I think, because, you know, I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, that if the universe is so complex, so complicated, so unfathomable, so grand, that it couldn't just exist, then how does inventing a god solve the problem? Because the god is clearly a lot more complex than the universe, which implies something even more complex had to create the creator. And you enter an infinite loop of recursion backwards. And so we run into the same problem. If you say the universe is too complex to have existed always, then so is God. God does need a creator. You can't just say, well, God doesn't need a creator. No. We are using your own argument against you here, actually. And you're going to have to give a real response to this question, or it just doesn't work.
And he doesn't, because this is why. Time, space, and matter were all created, and there has to be something beyond time, space, and matter to create all things in the first place.
How do you know that?
Now, a Christian would say that the original first beginning, the start of everything, and the beginning and the end would be God. But an atheist...
I think that that's all fair and good, because Christians can believe what they want to believe. But I don't buy it. I don't buy this explanation. And, you know, you're perplexed by infinites, as we all are, because infinite is just too big for the human mind to really comprehend. Like, what does it mean to be infinitely dense and infinitely hot? Our brains break down at the very idea, the very thought. So if that's your problem with the singularity and things of that sort, it's a much bigger problem for God, because how can God exist at all if God has always existed and always will? To be infinite in this way is as big of a problem for you as it is for us. Maybe, just maybe, infinites don't really exist at all.
Atheist would have to default to nothing being the beginning and the end. In fact, there is enough evidence to prove that God has to exist and evolution cannot be true. But
this is your brain on homeschooling. Homeschooling makes people into narcissists convinced that they can disperse with the entirety of science just by saying, well, God, man. But no, you don't have a point here. If you're about to go into some spiel against evolution, this is one you are about to lose by miles.
People do not believe in him. John 3:20 says, "For everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed."
What does this have to do with evolution? You were just about to go on a rant and tangent about evolution, and now you're quoting some bullshit about light? Come on.
People are naturally inclined to make up their own image of God in their minds, or deny him completely because of the bad things that they do. The reason why we hate God is the same.
I like how he added some very subtle piano in the background here as he's doing the proselytizing thing, doing the miniature preacher thing. How old is this guy anyway? How old does this guy look? I would guess, what, like, generously 17, 18? I mean, I hope I'm not making fun of a kid here, but again, this is your brain on homeschool. It's just sad, man.
Same reason why a burglar might hate a police officer. They've done something wrong and they don't want to get caught.
Oh god, he's about to go on some Blue Lives Matter stuff, isn't he?
Even though it's completely logical for God to exist, people do not want...
He keeps saying it's completely logical, but he has yet to say how it's completely logical. Please, young man, get to the point.
The moral accountability that comes with believing in him. This might seem far-fetched.
Are you saying atheists have no moral accountability? Because I find that very hard to believe. There are a lot more Christians in jail than there are atheists. Atheists are underrepresented in prison populations. There should be a whole lot more atheists in jail than Christians by any account. But no, the opposite is true. As a percentage, atheists are like, what, 4% of the U.S. population? But the number of atheists represented in prison is like less than 1%. So I don't know why you're assuming that atheists are just fundamentally immoral and unwilling to take accountability. I think we actually have to take a lot more accountability because we realize that there is no world to come. There is no heaven or hell. There is no eternal punishment. We have to make good right here, right now. We can't take all of our problems and all of our flaws and hand them off to Jesus and feel like good people because we've been forgiven. No, we have to work for it, as any good human should have to, including Christians, by the way.
Especially to my atheists out there. But let me prove that the reason is because people hate God. We can also...
Oh, here we go with the atheists hate God thing again. Let me tell you, when it comes to the issue of God, I think the Christian God is a nasty character. Very Hitlerian, just commits genocide when he feels like it multiple times in the Bible, commands genocide, commands rape, commands slavery. Really nasty guy. But the idea of gods in general, I find a lot less disagreeable on, let's say, moral or ethical grounds, like a deist god or whatever, who created the universe and then just bounced, like a lot of the founding fathers of America believed in. So when you say a person hates God, no, there are definitely fictional characters I don't really like a whole lot, and I'm sure you can relate. There are characters in fiction that you can just, like, despise as much as any real human. And for me, though, what it comes down to isn't anything about the biblical God per se. It's his followers that scare the shit out of me.
Intuitively know that God is serious about sin by the fact that people die. Here's why. The Bible...
Here is a fun little question I have for all of my Christian friends. God hates sin, doesn't he? He really hates it, really despises it. It's so bad it separates mankind from God. So why did he create it? God created everything, didn't he? If you hate sin and you are God, why do you just go, you know what I should do? I should create that. Evil too. Why would God create evil? Because for evil to exist, God had to create it. He's the only one really prescribed these powers, these powers of creation. For evil to exist, God had to create it. But why? Why did he create that? I used this example earlier today, but I really hate olives. If I were God, I would have not created olives. I would only create things I like. I would have said, you know what, I'm just going to blank the memory of olives and the existence of olives for all time. God could have done the same with sin and evil, but he did not. Why? Because he wants to play games with us? Well, that sounds pretty evil, doesn't it?
The Bible says in Romans 1:20, for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature.
All of them are invisible. I mean, the guy is just not there. He's just not real. All of them are invisible by definition. He doesn't exist.
Have been clearly perceived.
Oh, I get the point of this verse, though. This is the one where they say that every person secretly knows Jesus is real. Well, no. This is bullshit. We don't believe in the Bible. We have no reason to believe these words. This is wrong. I'm not secretly afraid that Jesus is real and gonna get me if I don't behave. No, man. The shit's not real. It just isn't. Period.
Ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. It also says in Romans 6:23 that the wages of sin is death. Very quickly, I would also like to address a common argument that people say against Christians that use the Bible to prove the Bible. I am proving the Bible with the Bible as much as you could prove that the president lives in the White House by looking inside the White House.
This has to be one of the most asinine and ridiculous things and comparisons that I have ever heard in my life, and I really hope this young man sees this video because I just want him to know you should stop. You should just stop, because this is silly. Because, you know, the thing is, any religious person could make the claim that you just made. So why should I believe you instead of them? Most of you have claims of exclusivity. Only one of you can probably be correct. Which one do I believe? Please, let me know how I figure out which one is the real religion, since all of them are making the same claim of exclusivity.
You can see that the Bible's true about what it says about itself because it actually says things that we can look at outside the world and see if the world attests to the Bible. Many atheists actually use the existence of death as a reason why God cannot be good or righteous. However, they use this argument because they do not understand that they are guilty against God and how serious God takes sin. The other religions of the world, other than Christianity, do not have answers for death that are coherent, that are logical, that make sense. Because why would God allow bad things to happen to good people? But the better question is, why does God allow good things to happen to bad people? Because we've sinned against him. And the answer is, he has amazing grace and mercy and steadfast love that we don't see because we think we deserve no harm done to us because we think we're good. The Bible also claims this. It says,
I've got a YouTube channel that I like to watch. There's this guy, and he does videos. This is an older guy. He's like 70 years old. He's like the same age as my dad. But he's got something that my dad doesn't have, which is to say he's not a super fundamentalist. So my dad loves old Westerns. He's a huge old Western fan. He adores them. And I think he would love the video game Red Dead Redemption 2. But there's a problem. In Red Dead Redemption 2, there's a lot of F-bombs. And, worse yet, they say goddamn. Anytime my parents hear the F word, they get a little bit like, you know, oh no. But when they hear goddamn, they really, like, lose it. I've seen my dad go, ah, shoot, and turn the channel immediately and never go back. So that tells you, like, the mentality they have about these things. So I watched this old guy play Red Dead Redemption 2. 70 years old, same age as my dad, similar personality, really cool guy. And it's like the highlight of my days lately because I get to see this man discovering for the first time a video game I have enjoyed and loved so dearly and deeply. Red Dead Redemption 2 has just been so important to me, and watching this man find everything in it that I found, that one magical first playthrough, just fills me with a kind of joy I didn't know. And I told you all of that to tell you this. When he feels a creeping tiredness come over him, let's say things have been going wrong in the game, he'll say, "Smoke 'em if you got 'em."
most men proclaim their own goodness. And when people say that they're good people or they like to assert their own goodness, as I have personally seen many times when I've asked people if they believe themselves to be good people, it proves the Bible.
No, it doesn't. Most people do tend to think of themselves as good people because they're not out there violating the rights of other people. They're out there trying their hardest to be decent people. Most people do that. Do all of them succeed? Well, I would say not. I don't think I do all the time, or maybe even a lot of the time. I would not consider myself a good person. I would consider myself just a person with the same struggles and difficulties as everybody else, trying to be better sometimes or often failing. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just being human. And Christians like to make this into some fatal flaw with humanity. Like, it's so bad that we are only humans being human. But the thing is, I don't feel the need to be redeemed from my badness. When I do something bad, when I am a bad person, I don't feel the need to get on my knees and pray about it and say, "Please forgive me, O Lord," because I don't think "O Lord" is the one I'm accountable to. I think the ones I'm accountable to are the people negatively impacted by my actions. Sometimes that's me. Sometimes that's other people. But never in my whole life have I ever felt like I have done something bad and needed to pray for forgiveness about it. If I've done something bad, there's somebody who's hurt because of it. In most cases, it's going to be me. In some cases, it's going to be other people. Figuring out which one it is very important. Christians like to just hand this off to God. And that's why so many of them seem emotionally stunted, and I have to hope that this young man doesn't end up like that. I mean, it's a sad outcome. I don't want to see anybody end up like that, really.
Are bad people because God's righteous is infinitely higher than our righteous, and he demands...
Well, you know, I disagree, and here's why I disagree. I've never been so mad at people for doing things they want to do, whether I agree or not, that I've been like, you know what? All of these people should die. But you know who has felt exactly like that? Well, God. And you may say that he's righteous, but personally, I don't see what's so righteous about killing most of the animals, plants, and all of the babies on Earth during the flood. I don't see what's so righteous about that. I think to be righteous would be, come down there, show yourself to them, make yourself known, let them know you are there and want better for them. Now, Christians, of course, would say Jesus did just that. But Jesus appeared in the middle of nowhere to probably less than a couple thousand people, and so that's not exactly what I would consider good enough. I mean, just think about all the things God could end right now if he wanted to. Why doesn't he? Where is he? Does he want people to have the choice? Well, who is benefited by a child having leukemia and dying of leukemia before they've been able to have their life and live their life? Nobody benefits from that. That's not a test worthy of anybody. And to say it is offensive. And for that to happen, your righteous God has to let it happen. I wouldn't let that happen. I think that makes me more righteous than your God. And that is a problem for you, I would say. But I think that's where we're going to call this one, because I was expecting him to go into some anti-evolution stuff. If you're going to, like, say atheists are fraudulent, you don't prove your point by quoting the Bible, which we don't believe in the first place. You know, kid, I know you're new at this. That's fine. We're all new at something at some point. And I would encourage you to continue. Yes, I know, my followers, this may shock all of you, but I think we all have things to learn, and this kid's no different. Who knows what he'll learn over time. But I must say, my dude, here's the thing. When you're talking to atheists, you're not talking to people who are ignorant of Bible claims. You see, most atheists in the West, in America, came from religion. I am the child of a preacher, a pastor, a televangelist. My mom is a gospel singer. I did spend half my life in churches. I am almost 34, and I think I stopped going to church when I was like 16, so roughly half my life, I was a big churchgoer by force. And the thing is, what made me an atheist wasn't science. It wasn't even religion itself. It was, I just didn't buy it. I just didn't see the need for a God to exist. If I hadn't known about science, it wouldn't have made any difference. I didn't know about evolution and the Big Bang when I thought, this God stuff sounds really suspicious. And a lot of people are the same way. But even though I never personally believed in it, most atheists, who are convinced atheists, did. That's why they're so convinced. Maybe check out Dan Barker. Check out his book, Godless. He was a preacher for, I think, the first 35 years of his life, basically. The kind of guy you wouldn't want to be next to on a bus, because if you were next to him on a bus, you were about to hear the word of the Lord. And then he realized that everything he believed was a lie. And the story of how that happened is quite fascinating. These days he runs the Freedom from Religion Foundation. So if you're going to try to appeal to atheists, you're going to need to do better than this. If you're going to try to debunk atheism and call it fraudulent, you're going to have to do better than saying, well, the Big Bang isn't true, evolution isn't real, and here's the Bible. Here's like a half my video quoting the Bible. You're going to have to do better than that. We're not convinced by that. If you're wanting to convince us, you'll have to do better than that. If you're talking to your own people, that's fine. But do you really want to be preaching to the choir?